There is a place where the ocean is never far away. Here the tides shape the land, and life moves to a rhythm as ancient as the sea itself. Countless organisms call this area home. Few would guess that this wild coast belongs to the smallest state in America, Rhode Island. This is a story of a place where there still remain environments that have persevered through a rapidly changing world. Where one can find animals, from the slender and the sleek to one of nature's most vital forage fish. Where the fleeting predators patrol its waters and conservationists work to protect the animals they cherish.
Oh, that's a spinner, it's a spinner!
Where ocean giants pass through, and where marine animals of all kinds congregate to find food. This is one of New England's most important environmental hotspots. A place still filled with mystery. This is the story of Rhode Island's wild coast.
Great job!
That was really
Great
nice.
job.
Ocean State. Watch the film series exclusively on Ocean State Media.
This is Life's Tough, Explorers Are Tougher, and I'm your host, Richard Wiese. Scratch the surface of an explorer and you'll find an adventure and a great story. This show is about their tales. This podcast is a proud supporter of the Explorers Club and the EC50 Initiative, 50 people changing the world that the world needs to know about. For more information, go to explorers.org. Welcome to Life's Tough, Explorers Are Tougher, in association with the Explorers Club. I'm your host, Richard Wiese. Today I'm joined by Tomas Koeck, a filmmaker, producer, and storyteller whose work gives voice to the natural world. Tomas's films blend exploration, science, and conservation. His work has appeared on PBS, National Geographic, and the Smithsonian Channel. And he's also the creative force between the fantastic film, and I'm going to emphasize fantastic because I have seen this film more than once, Flyway of Life. It's a powerful look at migration, resilience, and our connection to nature. Tomas reminds us that some of the most important journeys happen quietly and that storytelling itself can be an act of exploration. Hey, Tomas, how are you?
I'm good, Richard. How are you doing?
You know, I have to tell you, the way you and I met was kind of interesting. You had invited me to, I'm assuming it was the premiere of your film.
It was, yeah. That was the very first screening.
And so it was in Fairfield, Connecticut. It was in association with Sacred Heart. What's that theater there? Because it's an old-time theater.
Yeah, it's called the Community Theater. Now it's called the Sacred Heart University Community Theater. And Sacred Heart bought it, I think, like 6 years ago, maybe a little bit less than that. And they totally restored it. And now it's this really cool kind of jewel right in the center of Fairfield.
Yeah, it really is. So my impression was that it sort of was a marriage of like an old style movie premiere. It has those great lights that go around the theater.
Yeah.
You had places where people could take photos. I saw a lot of people taking photos. And, that has the velvet ropes that when you go in there. And the theater is actually pretty big. I don't know how many it holds, but.
Yeah, I think the max is like 470. So
yeah,
you can just
and it was filmed.
Yeah.
But then it also had the feeling of a family reunion. Your film was introduced, and it was funny because the person I was sitting next to was actually doing the voiceover.
I saw that. That was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, which was kind of fun. And then after the film, there were just seemed so many people who were involved in that film. And I just love the vibe of the community there. And there must be a secret sauce of the filmmaking department at Sacred Heart.
Yeah, no, they do really good work. And it's so ironic that like the name of the theater is the Community Theater, and that was like the exact thing we were going for with that event, because we had like, I see, and there's nothing wrong with doing this, but a lot of other filmmakers and film producers will have one and done screening and that's kind of it. But for this, we wanted to make it sort of this this event that bridges the whole community together. So like across the street, we had Canon actually printed out some gorgeous prints that were taken along, or photos that were taken along the assignment of the duration of the production of the project. And we had 30 pieces in there. We had live music. And so once that event was kind of over, people migrated across the street, no pun intended, into the screening venue and got to see the film. And then we had guest speakers. So what I was going for was, it wasn't just about the film. The film was the centerpiece event, but it was about getting all these conservation organizations together. I mean, we had folks from the Connecticut Audubon, we had folks from Canon, we had folks from the National Audubon, we had the Explorers Club New England chapter involved. I mean, it was a really cool symposium of all of these different people come together, and I think we really did a good job with that.
Gosh, there were a lot of things that struck me about the film. As I said, the community feeling going into it, but then, you know, throughout the journey, and your journey starts in the Caribbean, I believe. And
just about, Costa Rica is right in the cloud forest. Yep.
Yeah, the cloud forest, and it goes all the way up into the Arctic.
Yep.
And part of it was shot actually probably biking distance from the theater.
Yes, literally.
Yeah,
yep.
Literally biking distance. And it just reminded me that there are all these communities of naturalists or people that are sort of devoted to singular subjects. In this case, it happened to be birds. And, you know, I just thought it was a really beautiful celebration of nature, and it didn't completely sugarcoat it. There were scenes, obviously, that were tough to watch, of birds crashing into buildings.
Yeah, the window collision. That was hard to film too, and that was where I learned just as much as the audience does when I'm, you know, producing these films. I didn't understand. I had the numbers, the statistics in my head of, you know, 1 billion birds die a year from window collisions. But when you actually go to that office in New York with the New York City Bird Alliance, and you go into these freezers with all of the dead birds that they're collecting, I'm like, oh my God, this people have to see this to really understand why this is something we need to talk about.
So, you know, it looked like a really big project. I don't know the amount of time it took, but I'm used to shooting a shorter format where I have to kick out a lot of episodes rapidly. This looks like it would have taken a lot of time.
Yeah, I was in a really good position, and this is where I got to credit my professors at Sacred Heart. They let me, so when I graduated undergrad in 2022, I then immediately decided that I really wanted to continue my education through a graduate degree, and Sacred Heart also offered a graduate program. And my professors were kind enough to say, hey, listen, we know you work hard, we love your work, and we want you to continue to grow. One of the best ways that we think you can do that is actually branching out and doing a project of your choice that's going to take the duration of your degree, and will actually count a lot of these production credits for that project as long as you stay on task. So it allowed me to branch out and go, okay, I want to be really ambitious about this. This is going to be my last project as a student. Why don't I create a project that is going to help boost my professional career? That's also going to be something that I'm going to be proud of even years after that I've graduated. So production started, you know, in 2022, continued on until 2024, probably a little bit of filming in 2025, but not much of it. And then we had that big screening on April 22nd. We've had this nice tour ever since. So it definitely was like I'm very fortunate the position I was in, and also to have the resources I had at the university, where whenever I had a problem or a question, or, hey, I need to look at this contract, I need to get this person assigned this, how do I do that? There was a lot of folks there that were producers back in their heyday, where they're able to go, hey, this is some of the things we think you should do. So that was super beneficial.
Is there any particular moment within this film that was especially poignant for you? I know you mentioned I think it was it Lower Manhattan, the bird collisions with the buildings?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely hit me hard, for sure.
Yeah, that hit you hard. And what is it that, you know, filming nature requires a hell of a lot of time, right? Because things just don't happen rapidly. And in fact, I know when I was filming Born to Explore, we started off as more of a wildlife adventure show, but then realized to keep up for 26 episodes a year, to keep that level of great nature shots, you'd either have to be faking it or limiting where you can go because it doesn't have
Correct.
big crazy animals. And so
Yep.
we ended up moving more to the cultural side of exploration and travel. Was there a particular scene beyond the bird collisions, which was tough to watch, to be honest, that had you really think, I wasn't expecting this?
And you bring up a good point with when it comes to wildlife filmmaking, it's all about time. You either need to get lucky or just make your own luck by investing a ton of time beforehand and setting everything up where maybe you're meeting with really good guides. You're meeting with really good folks who know the nature you're trying to film. So it increases your chances of being able to run into them. For this project, it required a lot of like basically showing up and hoping everything works out and then leaving and just hoping you got that stuff you needed. Like for Costa Rica, for example, we had way more ambitious of a storyline we wanted to tell, but I only got in a certain amount. So what I do is I set up these little backup plans, just like how you were talking about what you did with turning more to the cultural side. Costa Rica was a moment where I'm like, all right, I have a couple of wildlife pieces. Why don't I film these biologists doing their work and really get into their characters? So then you're not taken away from the film, but you're also meeting the responsibilities of the film and going, okay, I have what I need for this segment. Sometimes it switches where you get like crazy, crazy lucky. One of the most ambitious expeditions we had was going up to the Arctic. We partnered up with Churchill Wild. And this is actually where I met Chad Davenport, who introduced me to the Explorers Club. And he's a big credit to why I'm here today, because he's like, you should really look into this. And I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. But that's a whole nother story.
And Chad and I climbed Kilimanjaro together.
I know, it's like small world. It's beautiful. You know what I mean? So the whole goal was to film wolves, and wolves are so hard to film because they're so unpredictable. Once they're moving, they can be anywhere in their territory, and their territories are massive, especially up in the subarctic where there's not much restricting their travel. So we chose a time. So first we found our group to go with. That would be Churchill Wild. Jad knows his wolves. Then we're like, okay, what time of year can we go that best increases those chances? The time of year would be going and filming during the rendezvous portions of the wolf pups' lives. So what happens is when the pups start to get a little bit older, the wolves have these little rendezvous areas where when they go hunting, they kind of come back and they reset because the pups are not old enough to kind of just keep on trucking it around all the time. So we knew that if we can find a rendezvous spot, which Jad already had a good idea of where one was, we would be able to put ourselves in the best chances to film the wolves. Long story short, 4 plane rides later, we're out in the subarctic and we got a radio call saying, we know where the wolves are. We're like, are you kidding me? The first day we're going to hit it? And we were so lucky. We're the first day we filmed the wolves, second day we filmed the wolves, third day we filmed the wolves. And it got to the point where, and this is where the human brain is so fascinating, I started taking it for granted. Oh, we'll get them day 5, we'll get them day 6. Day 5 came and they were gone. And we had no idea where they went. So that was one of those moments where I'm like, we bracketed off a whole month to go out there and try to find these wolves, maybe wondering if they'd be on week 2 or week 3, and we got them day 1. And they only showed up one other time. Other than that, I think it was like 4 days from when I was leaving, and then they were gone again. So that was an example of us getting really lucky. And the reason, I'll tie it up all with this, is the reason we were filming the wolves was wolves are a really good indicator of healthy environments. They also help balance environments. So there's a lot of studies that showcase that in areas where wolves are present, they control the ungulate species, which are hooved mammals, that prey on or feed on a lot of the lower vegetation. Birds, like little warblers, utilize that vegetation to migrate through. So in areas where the wolves were taken out, the ungulate species went out of control and destroyed all the vegetation. And the bird migrations weren't able to happen as easily. So it was a cool way to also bridge that in. So there's a long answer to your short question, which was kind of what goes into some of these productions when it comes to patience.
Our mission is to empower the next generation of explorers. If you like this podcast, please recommend it to a friend and have them join the expedition. I mean, can you see it getting to a point now? I see as sort of clickbait online. Mm-hmm. People have these heartwarming stories of, certain human animal interactions. And
Sure.
You realize this is AI. This is not really happening, right?
There's a lot of AI now.
There's a lot of AI, but the thing is, like right now, you can more or less tell it's AI, but I could see in the not so distant future, they could make some really realistic scenes that you will not be able to do that. And, do you have any feelings? I know as a filmmaker that's got to eat at you,
Yeah,
because
it does.
I feel
Yep.
like wildlife filmmaking is something you have to truly earn. There
Yeah.
are no shortcuts. It's time, a lot of
Yeah.
time, and a lot of
Yep.
hanging out in conditions that aren't great. And then people are going to just start popping in caribou migrations, ivory-billed woodpeckers going through it.
Don't get me started. That's a question I've been kind of mulling over in my head because, like you, I've seen AI just get incrementally better. And it's like, just the other day, I'm embarrassed to say, I saw this clip of a snow leopard hunting. I don't know what species it was trying to mimic, but I thought it was real. And I sent it to my brother, and we took a closer look, and it turned out it was fake. It was AI. And I was embarrassed because, one, I've always kind of patted myself in the back going, I filmed a lot. I've seen a lot of interesting animals. I would be able to tell the difference, but I was humbled in that moment. So I've been trying to think, how am I going to, one, from a business standpoint, survive in an industry that's changing so fast, and two, set this up where we can continue doing things ethically, responsibly, where what people see in that footage is what they're getting. That's my biggest thing. So 6 months ago, I started my production company, which is a nonprofit called Silent Flight Studios. And our big thing is that we always lead with there's no generative AI being utilized in these productions you're watching. So the idea is whenever we partner with a network or whatever, we partner with a nonprofit or something, everyone knows that if you partner with Silent Flight Studios, you're working with clean content. So that also tells the viewer that if they see a Silent Flight Studios logo on something, or if they see, all right, this is the production house that was a part of this, they know they're getting clean content and they don't have to worry about going, oh, is that AI or what's that? If they see something extraordinary, that's because something extraordinary actually happened in front of the camera. So that, along with building community, also with doing impact campaigns and doing everything else when it comes to production house, is one of our big goals, especially in this changing space.
I always felt very good at a lot of the shows I've done. I've felt like, for the most part, we've never faked it. Sometimes you can compact action to make it seem like more things are happening.
Correct.
In a shorter duration.
Yep.
But I also know, and even you and I went filming, we were looking for loons in New Hampshire.
Yep.
I think we only saw, one or two?
We saw two, and you're the one who saw it too, which was awesome.
I'll take the credit for it. I don't really remember. But, I know in those situations, if we were on Lake Winnipesaukee, I believe.
Yep.
If, for example, their tourism board or whatever it is, Chamber of Commerce, had a great sunset on there, I'd say, okay, I'll use that. So, there are elements of filmmaking that I know that when I travel places, for me to get that sunset, I'd have to spend a lot of hours. It's just not worth the time, effort, and the money. So, there's always been a little bit of, I guess, I don't want to say faking it, because faking it sort of denotes AI these days, but at least compressing action. And let's face it, you have to. Otherwise, no one's going to sit there for 3 hours waiting for an animal to cross. Or
Correct. You're framing an ecosystem, and that's where you have a lot of power with when you sit. Like, I do a lot of narration based film production. So when I'm having my narrator read something, I have the power to make it so the audience knows that we are introducing an ecosystem. So they're not sitting there watching going, oh, so I just show up to this one place and there's striped bass jumping out of the water and there's an osprey, which, flying in. You don't want to do that. So I think you explained it really well and I saw this when you were, doing your production with PBS, is you're setting it up where people are basically, grabbing a microscope and they're looking at all these amazing things that you're presenting to them through this amazing ecosystem or culture or whatever, or what have you. And I think that's a really responsible way to tell a story.
So, Tomas, what has really struck me about you is you're a great storyteller. I mean, I think you're very articulate, you tell a great story, yet, you've chosen to sit behind the camera. Is there more power to if you were able to do both? Or, you've made this conscious choice to sort of be behind the scene and have someone else narrate it or even host it. Was this a conscious choice?
No, it's a lack of manpower. If I had, the big thing is like, too, is I love to connect people to the stories I'm trying to tell. And sometimes the way I find that to be most effective is me telling people about it. I like getting people enthusiastic and excited about it. It's never about me. I just wanted to get people happy and excited and enthusiastic and optimistic about the subject matter I'm talking about. Um, uh, but the thing is sometimes I need to take a step back and focus on filming the wildlife at hand. There are productions like Flyway of Life where we did branch out and we had me kind of be like a pseudo host where I would like come in every now and again. Maybe I wouldn't be in every scene. And in the future, I can definitely see myself becoming more of a wildlife presenter. But I do really enjoy the producer and the director and the filming side, setting everything up and kind of having everything work where you have this idea of what you want to film. And then once you get a ton of content, then you go to the writing board and you write out your script and see what fits.
It's
Yeah.
amazing being in front of the camera, how stupid it can make you feel.
Oh, totally.
Because, you can intellectualize stuff, but now suddenly you're having to say, okay, is my hair combed? Is the lighting in my face? Did that sound okay? All of those things, which to me sometimes diminish the creative process. But, you mentioned you like to get people enthusiastic about it. And I think, at least from observation, one of your superpowers, if I may say, is that it's not about you. And I think sometimes when it's not about you, it makes it more powerful. Because I think people have gotten very wise to self-promotion and somebody, again, as a host who's done these kind of adventure wildlife things, you don't want to come off as the all-knowing, all-seeing, superhero like Indiana Jones type. It's just, I've seen it too many times and it's not appealing.
Yeah. And I noticed too, when you do a really good job of in your productions, when you are a host, you're experiencing it with the viewers rather than telling the viewers what's happening. So what that does is it puts the viewers right shoulder to shoulder right next to you so they can digest the story as it's happening with you, which I think is like a really organic way to pull them through the screen.
Well, thank you. I feel like I need to give you a compliment back.
No, no, I'm just telling the truth.
Listen,
I'm telling the truth.
I think in the many, many, many years now I've been doing this, it's just so much easier to play yourself, right? How the experience is organically happening in front of you. And if you have to bring the audience in and say, oh, by the way, this and that, I think people sort of get in their head space that they have to be a certain type, whereas either they try to be funnier or more rugged or any of those things. And I think when people are literally themselves, like no one in the world is better at being Tomas Koeck than you. And so that's what you should be.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes for anybody, it really does go for anyone.
So since you have done a lot of nature and observation, what has nature taught you that people haven't?
Oh, that's a really good point. A really good question. So I would say nature's definitely taught me, and I'm still inherently a super impatient person. Like I'm a go, go, go type of person. But when it comes to nature, I can flip that switch off and just be very, very patient and trusting the world to sometimes go through its process before you can get what you want. And sometimes you don't get what you want. Sometimes you do come up empty-handed. So you need to be strategic and figure out what to do in those situations. I'll give you a quick story. So my first kind of foot in the door with Canon was for a quick 10-minute film I did while a junior in undergrad at Sacred Heart. The whole goal was we were doing a 10-minute film, or I was doing a 10-minute film on great gray owls. And that was during COVID. That was during the height of COVID. So we weren't taking any planes. And this is where I credit my family. My family is my biggest ally with many of my things. Is my uncle. I really wanted to go out into Minnesota, and my uncle loves birding, and my dad loves that sort of adventure. So we decided as a trio to hop in my uncle's Ford F-150 and drive the 20 hours to Minnesota to go find us a great gray owl. And the good part is they got a free trip out of it too, because Sacred Heart was covering all the expenses. But I also got two of the best buddies I could ever ask for on a project like that, where we could take turns driving and keeps the blood flowing. When we were out there, we had super high winds. And what happens every year with the great gray owl is great gray owls are not inherently migratory species, but they chase food. And when you have rodent die-offs up north when in certain years where the crop is bad. The great gray owls in the winter have to migrate down into the U.S. in Minnesota and Wisconsin and some other states during what's called eruption years. Like I've heard of stories with people running into 100 great gray owls in a day, no exaggeration, because the eruption year was that great. So we had an eruption year. We knew we could get out there, so we drove out there. And again, we had a lot of wind, and all the owls, because they don't like wind when they're hunting, were staying in the thickets, in the forest. So we were driving around, we're hiking. We weren't getting anything. So day 1 goes by, day 2 goes by. We only have a week out there. Day 3 goes by. And this is my first project where Canon had sent me some gear to use. And this is my first project where Sacred Heart was funding anything. So I'm going, oh my God, like I'm going to screw this all up and no one's going to get me funding or get me gear again because I can't adhere to my promises. So what I did in that moment was, instead of just giving up, I said, okay, how can I pivot right now? How can I flip this whole thing on its head? Well, there's a lot of logging, irresponsible logging going on right now in this area. And what other species are here? Okay, we got different species of grosbeak, we got boreal chickadee, we got a ton of other birds that maybe I don't find as interesting, but are as important as the great gray owl when it comes to protecting habitat. So during those days where we were just getting hit hard and not getting any great grays, every chance I took, I was filming some logging stuff going on. I was filming the other birds. So I was starting to gather materials. So when I would go back, I would at least be able to put out something that would at least have some form of impact. But this is where things got lucky. The wind dropped one morning. It was negative 25 Fahrenheit, really, really cold, but we still got out there at 4 a.m. And we ran into our first great gray. And then we ran into another one. And then we ran into another one. And all of a sudden, I had all this content I had already. And now I'm getting the great gray. I'm getting the cherry on the sundae. So when I got back, I put that all together. So it actually became more of a film than what it would have been originally if I was just focusing on the owl. Now it became something about impact and protecting the owls and the other birds and preventing irresponsible logging. So that was one of the biggest lessons. And I've taken that scenario and many other larger versions of that through my different assignments.
You know, I'm still sort of taking the fact that you're with your father and your uncle, because I say this to my own sons. They're both 15. I say there is no male in your life that will hope that you do better than them, than your father.
Yeah,
and
it's very true.
It's very true. And you know, look, I know that your mom's an influence. Before we started taping, you said you were sitting in your mom's studio. What am I looking at?
Yep. Yeah, no, we're at right now. As we're filming this, it's the holiday season, so I came back. The whole family's all back together, and I'm doing this interview in my mom's studio. She's a really talented children's book illustrator and author, and a really, really talented artist. And I credit a lot of my love toward the arts because of her. And she's very interested in the outdoors too. A lot of her artwork has some animals involved in some places. And then my dad's very interested in the outdoors too, but he's on the more sporty side. So I'm kind of that perfect 50-50 of my dad with sort of, you know, definitely more of a thrill seeker. I mean, when he was younger, he was doing double black diamonds. He was motocross and all sorts of like very kind of fast and furious type stuff. And my mom's more of like, let me walk in the woods and see what comes out. So I kind of have that nice blend. So kind of full circle moment when I have a lot of these trips and stuff, my family sometimes gets involved. I mean, I worked on a project very recently that's going to be coming out soon where my brother, he's a PhD student at the MIT and Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution program. And he's doing research on eelgrass. So this project had a big eelgrass approach. So he's actually one of the stars that I'm featuring in this film. So it's super cool to get the whole family together. And
you're referring to your film, The Ocean State.
Yeah, that's the next project. I'm doing
Tomas, you know I have your poster in my office.
I know. You were the first one to get a poster, which I was super stoked about.
Yeah, so you went from birds to you know, really, the way you portrayed Rhode Island, I felt I was somewhere else. And I went to college in Rhode Island. I'm very familiar with its shores.
Yep.
And looking at your film, I was like, where am I? I just felt it was some mythical land that was not Rhode Island.
Yeah, no, Rhode Island's a really special place. And the reason I started working on this production, it's going to be a series with Ocean State Media. It's the PBS for Rhode Island, being premiered on WSBE and then streamed on PBS. The reason why I did this production was way back, like probably 5-6 years ago. I went out to see some family that were in Rhode Island, and I've been to Rhode Island before many times. But my cousin said, "Hey, we got a really good day tomorrow. We should go snorkeling." So I said, "Okay, yeah, let's do it." So I had never heard of really good snorkeling in the Northeast before. And my exposure to oceanic environments in the Northeast have always been the Long Island Sound or the salt flaps in Cape Cod, and things where when you're jumping in the water, you're not getting surrounded by like a coral reef or anything that you would imagine.
No, it's usually murky.
Exactly. So when we jumped in the water and it was off of Narragansett on a beautiful day, we hit like kind of the average visibility for Rhode Island, which is about 15 feet for that area. And I was immersed with striped bass swimming by, and a flounder came, swam by me. And then we had a bait ball, which is just a bunch, thousands of little bait fish swimming through, and tautog amongst the rocks and crabs underneath. And I'm like, what is this place? Where has this place been?
Well, you're probably saying, why don't I have my camera?
Oh, and the funny part is that was before I even got into photography. So it sit with me for that 6 years. And I was like, whoa, this is like a really, really cool spot. Why isn't anyone talking about this? So no kidding, I'm up in the subarctic on a break filming those wolves and the polar bears and all sorts of cool stuff up there. And I'm going, how cool would it be for someone to do a production specifically about Rhode Island? So that's where I went to some of my friends and business partners in Rhode Island. So one of which, John Dodd, who's another member of the Explorers Club. He's the director of the Atlantic Shark Institute. And I said, how cool would it be? Do we have contacts? Do we know people there that can help make this a really, really great production? And he introduced me to some great people, and he's been a big help on this project as well. And that's where I want to show Rhode Island through my eyes, and talking about the eelgrass and the sharks and the skates and rays and the shipwrecks. We have a whole tons of things that we're going to be filming the next couple of years while we continue working on this production.
Well, I have some people I'll hook you up with too in Rhode Island.
Yes, please.
Obviously, I'm a big fan. Hey, listen, we only have a couple more minutes. So you went for the big bird film, epic now ocean thing. So what is the dream?
The dream for me, like career-wise?
Yeah, what's the dream? Where do you see it going?
I really hope to make an impact toward the next generation and toward all generations. I really hope that my films will help create meaningful change where we can switch the trajectory of where we're headed right now from an environmental scale, but also how we all communicate. I think like right now, we're in such a volatile era where everyone is just so angry at each other and no one's listening. And I hope that my films, when people sit down, they not only learn to trust them, because I feel like we're having a big media literacy issue nowadays with people not trusting the media that they're seeing, but also can open their minds and hearts to it and understand that this is content that was done good-natured with goodwill, and the objective being, let me take you to some place that maybe you haven't seen before, or let me show you a story or tell you a story that maybe would draw some interest from you. So that would be the big dream, and for me to continue doing it effectively.
Just to go full circle in this whole thing is that in the very beginning, we talked about community. And I think that, again, to reuse a phrase I use is superpower, to create community and really a larger community, a kinder, gentler place. And maybe that's what nature teaches you.
Yeah, no, it definitely teaches me that for sure, because nature can be at odds with each other too and at odds with us. But if you learn to make peace with it, it's better for everybody.
All right, Tomas, thank you so much for coming on, and I can't wait to see your next project.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed our podcast. Now we have a little favor to ask. We'd really appreciate your support, so make sure to leave us a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss another episode. See you out on the trail.